So I'm making this video right now to talk about everything I learned in CMN 4105 with Dr. Strangelove as a prof. My name is Morgan, and it'll say that below as well. So I just wanted to start off right off the bat that I think we learned a lot in terms of responsibility using technology in this class, just because a lot of us buy new technology when it comes out, but don't really think about how that impacts, let's say, the environment or the kind of sweatshop environment that Apple products are made in, that kind of thing. It's environmentally unsustainable to continue to use these products, and everyone kind of wants their own, Fitbit, laptop, iPhone. I know a lot of people who have all three. It seems a bit unnecessary to have all three, but in this kind of consumer society, we've almost acted like this is normal and we deserve to own these kind of expensive technologies. The issue with technology in general, I think, is that it wastes a lot of our time. It's very convenient in terms of like group projects or reaching out to a family member online that you haven't talked to in a while, kind of simultaneously. You can send messages to each other. But I think that overall, technology mostly just wastes our time. And that's what I realized when we conducted the last project, was that I spent around 5 or 6 hours using technology a day, and I kind of wonder what other stuff I could have been doing with that time. But then again, if I'm spending that much time on technology and the average person is probably spending more time on technology, then really would I be participating more because everyone else is equally as distracted as I would have been, which is a question we could ask ourselves. Even though I feel like I'm doing the right thing, does that necessarily mean that would gain me more face-to-face interaction with others? Probably not, because everyone is equally as caught up in these activities as I am. But another problem with technology is that we're always looking down. With laptops, phones, we're always constantly looking down at something. Especially when you walk into a room in public or a coffee shop, most people are not really talking, and it would be really kind of weird to strike up a conversation with a stranger. And I feel like that's why technologies like Tinder exist, apps like Tinder and Bumble, because people are too uncomfortable to approach each other in real life, and so they need to resort to online measures to now even strike up a conversation, just a regular conversation, without it being deemed socially One of my favorite topics we talked about in class was morality, and I do agree that morality is most likely rooted in our emotional values, and I think this when we compared ourselves to apes and then humans. I believe this because we wouldn't, like, animals eat other animals, they don't think about it, but we would not eat other humans, you know what I mean? Like, that kind of goes against our emotional, that would make us upset, therefore we wouldn't do it. We don't know why that's wrong, but because we don't want to do it, it kind of becomes like ingrained in our morals that we probably pass down to generations, is that that's kind of messed up. And like when we feel something, something inside us tells us to do something or to not do something, that kind of becomes the, I think, societal norm. When we pass that down to our friends and family, how we feel about this, if they agree, it can become kind of the norm to everyone. So in that sense, I do believe morality is suited for the species it is intended for, in that way. And I think with the emergence of technology, we're still trying to figure out where that certain line is, where we draw the line. But because it's so new, I feel like that might take a while to figure out. And even as we're figuring this out, new technology is emerging all the time, whether we hear about it or not. Or whether it becomes open to the public, it's still coming out, and so we need to kind of figure out rules, I guess, that work for everyone. But that's the problem with a lot of this, is that it is so subjective. Another interesting topic we talked about a lot in class was kind of the idea of capitalism, and I like when we touched on the idea of utopia specifically, because I feel like when we talked about it, everyone wants to achieve utopia, and everyone wants to work towards achieving a community that is kind of utopia-like, but that is difficult to do in today's climate equally as much as it was back then, because people are kind of driven by their own agenda. So I don't think utopia will ever be a thing. I don't think it will ever be achieved, because people are always trying to put themselves a little bit first, even though, you know, the greater good is often considered with many individuals as well. When it comes down to it, people will kind of give themselves most benefits if they can. They want to get ahead. They want to be the most successful, the most rich. And when it comes to utopia, you can't really play it like that. Everyone would need to be equal. Everything would have to be equal to achieve this kind of utopia world that people claim they're striving towards, but the structures we have in place right now make it impossible to achieve that, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. What I learned in this class was that although the internet can be used for good in many ways, can reach people perhaps in crisis, with phones. Everyone can be reached right away by text message or Facebook Messenger, that kind of thing. In times of crisis, in times of emergency, reaching relatives, reaching people across the world. The internet is really, really good for that, and it's amazing the technology we have. However, we should not think of that as the be-all and end-all and just say it must be a good thing and write it off, because otherwise we don't learn from our mistakes like we've done in the past, and there's always consequences to every good idea, and we just need to be open-minded about it and not kind of, when new technology comes out or anything new comes out, people often don't want to consider the cons because they're so excited about it. But I feel like in terms of technology, it's so powerful and it's easy to get your hands on it that we need to prepare for the possible consequences of these actions. And this class has really taught me to be aware, not to necessarily be pessimistic, but at least consider all the options. So yeah, that is a lot of what I learned this semester. There's a lot more, but that would be kind of a very long video. But thank you so much for the wonderful semester, and have a great summer.